Gabe, welcome to the Byte Federal Podcast.
Good to be here.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Paul.
So, I mean, I've known you for several years, but you guys have done so much with block spaces and with what you're building now, which I just heard about, which is fascinating. So I wanted to kind of give our audience a little summary of how you found Bitcoin, what led to block spaces, and then maybe from there we can dive into what you're building. So maybe let's just start with like Gabe and Bitcoin. How did that happen?
Yeah, well, so I'm a huge Ron Paul fan.
Okay.
So he got me on the end the Fed bandwagon, right, back when he was running for president in 2008 and 2012. So he kind of learned me after the financial crisis. I was actually working in the housing industry for a land survey company. And so I saw the impact firsthand because we were super, super busy the years preceding the crash.
Right.
And then we had literally no work. And our work was specifically consisted of new home building, residential projects. And it just came to a complete halt.
Gotcha.
Which was like, how the heck did that happen? And so that got me down the rabbit hole of learning about our whole financial system, like what is going on here, how does it work, which dovetailed into Ron Paul. I found what he was talking about very compelling, as far as identifying the problem, right, which is of course fiat currency. Which he actually, I would attribute him as popularizing that term at all, because before that nobody even knew
audit the Fed,
I'd never heard of.
Yeah,
audit the Fed. I thought the Fed was a government organization. It turns out it's not. It's a private corporation. But so and I've always been interested in technology. I went to school for computer engineering, so when Bitcoin crossed my path, because I was running in those libertarian circles and the cypherpunks, I immediately, resonated with me that this could be potentially a solution to this whole fiat currency problem. And of course, this was pretty early in Bitcoin's life, right? Bitcoin had just launched in 2008. I really started paying attention to it in 2012. Wow. Late 20, around the first halving, actually, because a lot of news about it was coming out, a lot of discussions about whether or not it was going to work, right, with the halving. All the questions, we actually still
all the same questions,
get recycled every cycle, so that's pretty funny. But that's where I came across Bitcoin, and now Rose and I started seeing each other around that time as well.
Okay.
So I was like learning about this, but at the time there was such a stigma around Bitcoin, right? Because it's so closely associated to Silk Road. And so, it was like, a very, you don't talk about it in public, right?
Right.
You don't tell people about Bitcoin, unless you want to admit you're doing lots of drugs. But so I was like very hesitant to even bring it up to her, right? Because I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna freak her out or she's gonna just think I'm crazy. Of course, everybody thought I was crazy when I started talking about Bitcoin, but I mentioned it to her. I was like, hey, I want to talk to you about this thing I've been researching. And, she was open to it. And so I started talking to her about Bitcoin. She started asking, all the usual questions that we all ask. But that's how she got into it. I kind of like roped her into it because we started watching it just 2013 in 2014 was a pretty good run up for that cycle. And so that's when we started, we decided to do a Bitcoin meetup because none of my circles, certainly none of her friends, knew anything about Bitcoin, right? And I was just hungry for more information.
Right.
I had like exhausted all the Andreas Antonopoulos videos that he has put out at that point.
God, I wish he would come back and just.
I know.
He was unbelievable.
He was so good.
So good.
So it's still very good. I still highly
You can
recommend
watch it all again. Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
It's timeless.
Yeah.
But so when we decided to launch a meetup, it was like, okay, we don't know anybody in our circle who knows anything about this, so why don't we just put a meetup out there and see if we can attract others that are interested. So that's what we did. I launched Tampa Bay Bitcoin in 2014. That was the Tampa Bay Bitcoin meetup. Now it's still running, 10 years strong. Mm-hmm. It's the longest running active Bitcoin meetup, and then of course that dovetails into the foundation now, the Bitcoin Bay Foundation. But back then, we had no idea what we were doing. I was just trying to get more information,
Right.
see
Find like-minded people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it worked. We started growing, and then by 2017, the huge run up there that year, that drew in tons of interest. And it actually became a logistics problem for me, being an organizer, trying to gather all these people that want to come out to a meetup, because prior to that, we'd be fine. I could fit everybody coming to a meetup around this table, right? So, I could reserve a table at a bar or restaurant easily. But then we had like hundreds of people trying to come out to a meetup. It was super cool, but it was a logistics nightmare. It's like, where am I going to put all these people? How am I going to find a venue to host all this? So that led us to block spaces. We were literally wanted to open up a physical location that people can just come to as like a landing zone. People can come, learn anything and everything they wanted to know about Bitcoin. So that was our initial idea, is launching, and now we see those kinds of places popping up all over the place.
Right.
This is 2017, 2018 is when we did our grand opening. But we got a space, and it was actually in an old. It was a server warehouse where they would host a bunch of servers for companies and whatnot, but they were also happy to be mining Bitcoin. So they had like 1,000 S9 miners in the back humming along, and you can actually hear it when you pull up to the building. And you can feel it when you tried to enter the front door. There was negative pressure. Yeah, the vacuum. You had to like pry the doors open just to get in. It was pretty hilarious. But the place was just not in good condition. So the building actually caught fire a couple times because it was consuming. Smokes. It would blow the transformers all the time. So it was crazy, but that was our first place, and we had something going. We were very active. We had something going on almost every night. We had mining Mondays for people interested in mining, trading Tuesdays for the traders, a general meetup on Wednesdays for any newbies, a developer meetup on Thursday nights, and Friday nights would be like a whatever free for all hangout night, movie night. There were documentaries coming out or whatever. So we stayed very active. We did like a membership model. But then the bear cycle was inevitable there. That came, 2018, the same year. So 2019, we had to figure out a new revenue model. So that's when we got some of the developers that were, working out of our space. We actually got a few of them together and started doing projects. Mm-hmm. So, because we also had lots of interest from businesses and enterprises coming to us saying, at that point, Ethereum had just come out. It was like gaining steam. So the idea of smart contracts and all these other blockchain use cases was all the rage with enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
So we started doing like project development and scoping and consulting for enterprises. And so that's when we started, we kind of pivoted from being just like a physical location to more, we're getting into the weeds with the technology and building out solutions.
Was that like an incubator type model, or were there like investors in these companies, or?
We had initial angel investors, early on, so that helped. But we were generating revenue with that model, more so than the membership model. So that kind of took precedent after a little bit. So that's when. So that was like our first pivot from being just an incubator, co-work space, to being more of a solution,
Right.
Software solution provider. And that's essentially what we are still doing today. But we're just focusing. We went into doing Lightning solutions. And we have the first Lightning to QuickBooks integration in the QuickBooks marketplace. So we were first to market with that. And then now we're doing kind of like a full suite of fintech solutions for Bitcoin using Lightning, but in a very unique way.
So on the Lightning QuickBooks integration, is that like, how do people buy that, or how do they implement that? Is that hosted through you, or is it?
Yeah, we host it, but our solutions are non-custodial, as Bitcoin should be. So we set up all of the infrastructure automatically for our clients, and then they just sync it up to their QuickBooks. And so when they issue invoices through QuickBooks, like a business is used to doing, right? We embed a Lightning invoice link that they can choose to pay with Lightning through that, and then on the business end, it just reconciles in their QuickBooks as that was paid.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's great. And so where you obviously you're probably selling that to a lot of Bitcoin businesses that are invoicing people around the world, or is that the primary use case?
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
or
great.
it could be any business. It doesn't have to be a Bitcoin business.
Right. Just be those the first adopters, right?
Yeah. Usually, a lot of them have already figured out how to, accept Bitcoin payments.
Yeah.
Right. It's the businesses that know nothing about this is that we're really targeting, and they don't need to know anything. They could just add it as a, extension app into their QuickBooks and.
Very cool.
Benefit from.
So you're getting a lot of companies that are just saying, hey, I'd be willing to, or I would like to accept a Bitcoin payment, and
they just have no idea how to.
Just no idea how to.
Yeah.
So is that your primary customer now for that?
Yeah, for that product. But we've kind of not focused on that product because there's not a lot of companies looking to accept payments still.
Right.
It's
hard to spend something that goes up at 50% a year.
It is, and I completely sympathize with that. So that's why we're getting into more of how to utilize Bitcoin more as a collateral asset. So owning Bitcoin as a corporation, but then putting it to work.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that, because that's I think on everybody's mind right now. It seems like, right? Every time I turn around and I listen to Sailor, or I listen to a new business idea or a new launch, it's about borrowing against your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin is pristine collateral. How interest rates on Bitcoin should be far lower than any other interest rate. And so seems to be that's in the zeitgeist right now. People are looking in that direction, and you've actually already built tools or in the process of getting those to market right now. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So we built a kind of a fully integrated solution. Like I said, that maintains the non-custodial aspects of, holding your own keys, or in a lot of institutions cases they're using qualified custodians.
Mm-hmm.
So And that's fine with us. We don't care. We're just leveraging. We have a setup or framework where you can send Bitcoin to what is essentially like a smart contract, but it's totally in Lightning. So we're leveraging the Lightning peer-to-peer protocol, the HTLC channel, and we embed a state machine into the Lightning nodes, so that commands the collateral movement of that, whatever the liquidity is in the channel. So that will maintain, whatever the position that it's targeting or, set to target by the terms of the contract. And so it's totally hands-free as far as we're concerned. We can do very customizable, bespoke contracts, and this is all off-chain. So it's very private from a peer-to-peer perspective, because those are the only parties that know what's transpiring within that channel, because we're not broadcasting it throughout the network. Or we're actually not using the Lightning network per se at all. We're just isolating that channel for this. So it's
a matter of finding the smart contract you want to work with at a specific node, right? It's not, that smart contract's living on one node. Is that correct?
Yeah, or on both nodes, on both counterparty sides.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So it's checking against itself. So you couldn't change the terms
Gotcha.
On your side, and then
because that would invalidate the contract.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. So I'm not technical, so I'm trying to wrap my brain around this.
That's fine.
So you've got a contract. Let's say a simple agreement. Says I want to lend X amount of BTC for X amount of a loan funded in stable coins, for instance. Explain to me what part of that contract lives on what node, and how it communicates with each other.
Yeah. So that's where we leverage the Lightning protocol, because that sets up that kind of unique peer-to-peer channel of communication and payment. So what we've created is a state machine that could be embedded into the Lightning nodes, so it knows how to leverage the Lightning protocol to facilitate the payments back and forth. So what we're doing is you embed the contract terms, right? Lending and borrow situation, but we're working on other financial contracts as well. But once that's done, then essentially the borrower just sends Bitcoin. The Lightning channel is instituted between the two nodes, and then the contract terms are then correlated to Lightning payments, essentially. And our whole system is set up to where we're utilizing what's called watch-only nodes on Lightning, which don't have the key or don't have a wallet. It's just watching the channel, almost like a watchtower. But it's able to assess how much liquidity is on each side, essentially, and then the state machine makes the mark-to-market calculations in real time, and then sends the payment request to what's called a remote signer, which is and we're partnered up with Voltage, where they're running those nodes, and they're non-custodial. So you set up, or we have the whole onboarding process sets you up with a node with your own password and username. So only you have access to those keys, and we don't by design. But then our watch-only node is making those requests to the remote signers.
I see.
In order to facilitate the transactions between the two.
Right. So if it's more collateral needed to come in, it's basically sending a message to that node where the other side of that contract could push in more collateral.
That's right.
With their own private keys.
Yep.
Or vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. So it's like, and this is probably totally the wrong term, but like the state machine's almost like an oracle that's saying this is the current status, and therefore these inputs need to change.
Yeah.
That's very cool. No blockchain.
No blockchain necessary. except Bitcoin for this, the
Obviously.
final settlement. But and it's all native to Bitcoin too, so there's no other token or swapping or anything, bridging. No, nothing else is necessary. You just send a Bitcoin payment. It activates. We automatically institute the Lightning channel. Everything happens upon the termination of the contract. The channel closes, and then whatever the liquidity is on either side gets sent back out to a predetermined address that you set up.
That's really cool. So let me ask you about this, because the first thing that comes to mind is the limitation on the dollar amounts in Lightning.
Yeah.
But is that still a limitation, or is it no? Because
there's
you have
no constraint, because we're not leveraging liquidity.
You're not leveraging
network.
the whole network,
right? It's just
so these could be big loans that get funded.
Yeah, we're
like
talking
that.
to institutions that are looking to do.
Oh, that is amazing!
Hundreds of millions to billions.
Wow, that's a game changer.
We think so.
That is really cool. Yeah, that was the first question that came to mind when I thought I had a rudimentary understanding of what you're doing, is the limitation of the smallest node in the network being a choke point.
Yeah.
But now I understand. So this could really push Lightning adoption in a big way too.
We think so, yeah. Because once you're in Lightning, you're going to be incentivized to stay in Lightning. I think in the future, like when transaction fees go up.
And also, if somebody's like doing this, let's say somebody's like the nodes where the voltage nodes, right, where the parties to this contract may have millions or billions of dollars in Bitcoin and USDC or whatever. Yeah. They could also be using these pools of capital, I assume, to be involved in multiple contracts.
Right.
Multiple different state machines.
Exactly.
Could those nodes also be providing liquidity? Because inbound and outbound liquidity could come into those nodes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why also building on Lightning is super useful for this, because that all those mechanisms are already baked into Lightning's protocol, right? So once we start connecting the nodes and the channel partners of, say a liquidity provider or market maker, they can net their contracts, and we're looking into actually utilizing AI agents that will learn how to do that themselves. So you can automatically net these transactions. Like if you're in a negative position on one trade, in a good position in another trade, you can balance that and net that automatically through Lightning.
Interesting. So it could push out into the voltage node and back into the other contract and net out. While simultaneously I'm thinking it could be earning interest on just routing traffic.
Exactly. No, it would be optimized to earn the most, right?
Right.
Or put you in the best possible position.
Wow.
So you limit your risk exposure on all fronts. There's no central clearing party you have to wait for, so there's no jump risk as far as waiting time period right now. That's why we brand it as a collateral management solution.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what it's essentially doing. It's managing how that collateral is being operated in a strictly Bitcoin native way. So you don't have to use banking rails at all. This is all sans banking rails, but you can get the effects of doing that collateral management, but all natively on Bitcoin.
Can we mute that for all the Wall Street listeners, just to make sure that Gabe's safe? That's impressive. Dude.
Save me, Tom Cruise.
That's impressive. Like that's highly disruptive and really cool.
Yeah. We started ideating this almost 2 years ago now, and started building out a proof of concept. But now we're in pilot with a few key pilot partners. So we've been kind of stealthy with this, but we'll be making some noise this coming year.
Oh man, that's very exciting. Can you maybe without naming names, can you talk about some of the like test projects that you're doing with people?
Yeah. So we're working with miners, one that you know very well, may have just previously been here on your show, but and other market makers, prime brokers that are interested in opening up new market segments here. And of course, the institutional uptake with Bitcoin this year has been, unreal, to say the least. So our, the word's kind of getting out about our solution. So we have lots of interested institutions that are looking to deploy Bitcoin native products, but they don't know where to start. They don't have the infrastructure, or they're looking to altcoins, like Ethereum and Solana to launch something. We're trying to prevent that and just bring it all into Bitcoin natively, because that's where all the liquidity is anyway.
Yeah.
So why risk going all into all these other chains when you don't need to anymore?
Right.
That's
and plus the tax implications between switching between chains and managing that is a nightmare.
It's a nightmare all the way. Like you're adding risks, there's attack vectors, it's just all.
And there's
not ideal.
With the state machine that you've built, it would indicate to me that every financial piece of infrastructure that's been built in an alternative chain could live in that state.
Yeah, we can replicate everything.
All off chain, all at the speed of light at the lowest possible fee.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's really what they all want.
It's what they all want.
That's why they pursued all these altcoins. Right.
Yeah, but you don't have. It doesn't come with all the baggage from like a blockchain perspective, right? You don't have to add all these opcodes, and you're not embedding a smart contract forever on a public distributed ledger system.
Right.
These contracts can be very customizable, bespoke, scalable, and it doesn't live on chain forever. They're very private, peer-to-peer, as they all should be. So it's safer, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's more scalable.
And that's where all the capital is.
That's why we decided to really barrel down our focus on this particular use case, because we see that the opportunity is much, much larger than just like the Lightning payment integration piece that we were doing. But we can still do that. We still plan on doing that. We'll probably offer kind of like a bundle deal, because you'll also need accounting tools for processing all these transactions with contracts. But yeah, we essentially already built out all that framework.
Wow. I'm so many questions. So Lightning right now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can move stable coins over Lightning.
So Lightning Labs announced and launched their Taproot Assets protocol, which means you can essentially tokenize anything.
Okay.
Just last week, actually, it happens that Tether released an SDK called Hadron that enables you to interact with and mint assets through Tether as well. So yeah, we're trying to bridge that gap there.
So tokenizing real world assets, debt, fiat, you name it, becomes just a token running on the Lightning Network with BTC as money.
Yeah, as the underlying asset.
Right. Because like these tokens are are they riding on top? How does like for a non-technical person, how does a Taproot asset move across the Lightning Network?
Yeah, it's a Lightning transaction essentially.
But does that mean? But it's not like does it have to have a Satoshi with it or?
Yes, it is. It is Satoshi.
It is a Satoshi. Mm-hmm. It just represents. Right. Okay. Now I'm understanding it more like an NFT or a
Yeah, a rune or something.
Yes, right. Okay, so the Satoshi is what's moving across the Lightning Network, but it represents this other asset.
It comes with its own like identifier,
Right.
and its own. You can break up that Satoshi into whatever denomination of whatever the asset is.
Gotcha. Okay, so gotcha.
So Bitcoin is the underlying reserve asset for these tokens.
Gotcha. Very interesting. Okay, so maybe talk to me about, other than like the lending example that we just went through, what other kind of things do you see happening on this network now and in the future?
Yeah. So this is where it gets super interesting. And we're being a little bit forward thinking about this, but we think block space itself is going to be monetized in a different way than what we're currently seeing. So, of course, our name is Block Spaces, so it's kind of apropos, but that's part of the reason of our name is because we always knew block space. It was a valuable part of the Bitcoin system, right? But we think that's going to actually just grow from here. So right now, Bitcoin, as far as block space is concerned, is basically on a tipping point. Mm-hmm. Blocks are full all the time, and it doesn't take much for it to kind of, as we saw during the halving, for that to just go bananas. And I think that during the halving, we saw a glimpse of what Bitcoin's future is going to be all the time as far as fees. So we're working with Bob Burnett, who's also been talking about this quite a bit, where we think miners are going to need better tools for hedging, and institutions and other companies that are using the base layer are going to need to pay for access ahead of time for processing transactions. So
this is like a futures market on block space.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're actually targeting forward contracts, which is same as future contracts except more bespoke.
Okay.
They're peer-to-peer. There's no exchange. It's all over the counter. So an institution can sync up with a miner that's wants to make a future forward contract and say, hey, as a miner, I can pre-sell you block space for a fee now, right? So the miners can hedge much better that way, any volatility risks, and then institutions know that they can process a transaction in the future when they need to, and so you can.
Right. So this would be also important to big exchanges, right? That during a big price volatility, you want to make sure that they can book trades essentially.
For sure. Yeah. And so they'll just maybe purchase like, a block of forwards from miners, and then whatever miners process the actual transaction, that would be correlated to a contract on our system where they get paid.
Wow. That's really interesting. How does that... What do you guys see that, how do you see that impacting the transaction fees on the main chain?
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see a bifurcation of like real-time transactions, right? And future transactions, which there is no market for that right now as far as Bitcoin goes. Everything's kind of assumed to be done in real time. I think that eventually becomes untenable because there will be so many transactions trying to hit the chain, and the backlog will grow so long that, again, you won't know when your transaction's actually going to get processed. Right. And that's going to become a problem for institutions. So they're going to want to enter into these contracts directly with mining pools that can process transactions when they need to. Mm-hmm. And that will all have to be orchestrated in some way, and so we want to do it in a decentralized way.
That would compress volatility in the transaction, right?
Yes.
We might have a higher average transaction, but we're not going to get as much variance.
Correct. Yeah. It'll smooth out that transaction curve, which is really good for miners, right?
Right.
Because then they can start doing, predictive analysis on what their costs and
Sure.
income is going to be, which it's really hard for miners to do that right now, if not impossible, because they just don't know. And there's no good mechanisms for them to even hedge that risk. The best thing that's available right now is the hash rate contracts by Luxor. But the issue with that is that there's not a natural counterparty. It's just pure speculation.
Right.
Whereas with forward contracts, there is a natural on both sides. The miners need to hedge their risk. Institutions that need on-chain access are going to need those contracts available or have that availability to them. So we've built a framework now that can manage that, and again in a strictly peer-to-peer way. What we want to get away from is, sort of the solutions that each mining pool has its own kind of fee market that they're trying to develop on their own. That would, I think, not be the best for Bitcoin and the whole ecosystem. We need a more general solution that can have the same kind of organization as the mempool, but more forward-looking as well.
With block space on the main chain being filled up with some NFTs, but then the ability to maybe trade these NFTs across the Lightning Network through these contracts, is there a future where these NFTs don't necessarily ever go to main chain?
Yeah. I think that's eventually where it's going to have to go, because it's not going to make sense to do this on chain.
Right.
It's not going to be viable.
I can see lots of tokenized assets moving across the Lightning Network in this fashion, never going to main chain.
Yeah.
Always just going to the nodes of the owner at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Is that a realistic? Then you think that's a realistic?
Yeah, I think so. Right. We look at our phones now. Right. They're essentially, as far as 25 years ago, we have a smart computer in our pocket at all times that's always connected. I think a node will end up being like a similar
right. Everyone will have an
application,
node. Right.
On your phone or whatever.
Like
smart
instead of
device
getting your fidelity statement, you'll have your fidelity node.
Yeah.
And all your assets live on that node, and you are transacting those assets across the Lightning Network.
Yeah. Or you just tell your AI agent to do that.
Yes.
Hey, move this over here.
Right.
Through your smartwatch, and it just
happens.
Goes and does it.
Because
you become your own bank, right? Or in this case, you become your own financial institution.
It's kind of the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Exciting.
I'm laughing because Wall Street's just shitting themselves right now. But they'll jump. They're going to want to be a part of this, right?
Yeah, you either adapt or die. Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
I think
it's Wall Street's. It's Wall Street's. What was the Netflix moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Blockbuster Video meets Netflix, and it's Wall Street meets Lightning Network.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Wall Street is facing that very question right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have BlackRock,
if they're thinking ahead,
or you have Vanguard,
right?
Who, right. No, we're not going to do that stuff.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, BlackRock has the most successful ETF in history. So it's a very clear bifurcated line that we're seeing right now and who's on which side and who's winning. Mm-hmm. And of course, Bitcoin is winning always. So you want to be on the winning side. You would think, unless there's some other ideological reason why you're not, or maybe you're part of your own cabal that you're entrenched in and want to maintain control and
Yes.
power,
Yeah.
which I think, obviously a lot of Wall Street is. But I think to BlackRock's credit, if I'm being fair, they saw an opportunity here to make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what essentially they're there for.
You got to give them credit for being able to change their mind.
Yeah,
Anybody or any entity that can change their mind and go another direction, you got to give them credit.
gotta give them credit, and they're making money, so they're happy. We're happy. Bitcoiners, I would assume, are happy because we're also increasing our net worth, and they're helping us. And that's the whole thing is, Bitcoin's for your enemies too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're learning that lesson right now in real time. We didn't think it would be such a humongous enemy, but it turns out, once you understand the kind of problem Bitcoin is solving, and that is so massive, right? We have to assume that it's going to just, start aggregating the best and worst of everything. Like I said earlier, right? The initial marketplace for Bitcoin was largely Silk Road.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, that's just how I guess human
So it
nature works,
yeah.
and how these evolving, technological, revolutionary projects advance.
Yep.
So, and Bitcoin's tackling the biggest problem mankind has ever had.
How do you describe that to, obviously you orange pilled your wife, right? So how do you describe that to people that are maybe just now waking up to Bitcoin and going like, why is this thing so, like, it doesn't die and maybe I should get some. I've had a couple of those phone calls in the last month.
Yeah, I'm starting to get those back too.
And so how do you describe that the problem Bitcoin is solving and why that's so important for humanity?
Yeah, well, and it's hard to grasp, right? Because
easy to say, hard to grasp, right?
It's easy to say, hard to grasp, and everybody makes the same mistake because it's hard to assess how big it is. It really, we still don't know. Like, Bitcoin's not worth 90 whatever it is today. It's worth so much more. We just don't know how to price it yet. And it's because Bitcoin is the most sound monetary instrument mankind has ever had. So we're at this like very pivotal moment in history, mankind history, kind of history, where we've never seen this kind of thing before, and now we're trying to assess it as a group, as a global entity, and nobody knows what it's worth. Big hint, as all the Bitcoiners have said, it's grossly underpriced. Because it solves the money problem. Who is issuing the money? Now we don't need to rely on a trusted third party for that. And that is a complete game changer that we have only begun to sort of grasp the enormity of that being a solution that mankind has solved. Well, I say mankind, Satoshi, whoever you are. That's now a solved problem with Bitcoin. So we got to get to the point where we're done assessing it and actually utilizing it. And hopefully that's what I've been focused on is how can we get this underpinning our entire financial apparatus, replacing what has been for what could be, to quote a former presidential candidate.
That was good. So the one thing that I think is really interesting is that, and maybe we should dig into this more, is that this has scaling impacts on the Lightning Network that I think have just been kind of flippantly passed by, because that's a big deal for a lot of the people that push back against Lightning.
Yeah.
It's not scalable, that you'll never do enough, never enough volume, or you'll never be able to do large enough transactions. This kind of hacks that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the way you might see that evolve over time?
Yeah. So, the most optimal way Lightning works now is that you have these hubs. It's like hubs and spokes, right?
Okay.
Where you have these connecting points of the network that kind of congregate lots of channels. And that makes it easy to find routes.
The spokes are channels.
Yeah.
The hub is sort of the largest node in the group, right?
With the largest amount of spokes.
It attracts the most inflow.
Right.
Because it has the most liquidity. Is that an accurate assessment?
You can think of it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and with that, they can just keep attracting more liquidity, or at least flow of transactions, right? Liquidity flow. So, if you think at scale, right? Well, that's essentially how things are done anyway, right? We typically don't pay peer to peer. We pay through some kind of intermediary. But with Lightning, the intermediary is just a node on the network, right? You're not dealing with an actual entity for the most part. I mean, obviously, you have custodial wallets that have that aspect to them, but you also have non-custodial wallets that function the same way, right? Without the trusted aspect.
Describe for our listeners the difference between a custodial Lightning wallet and a non-custodial Lightning wallet.
Yeah, it's same as a custodial wallet or non-custodial. It's whoever controls the keys, essentially, right? Not your keys, not your cheese.
So Cash App, custodial Lightning
Cash
wallet.
App is custodial because they just aggregate all the transactions in their omnibus wallet, and then just maintain a balance of what portion of that is yours, right? But they're a regulated institution, so that's kind of how they have to do things. Where you have other non-custodial wallets that actually set up your own set up a node on your behalf. That's what we do, and then provide you with access to the keys, so you can shut down channels, you can open channels yourself, you can manually operate things, liquidity flows or whatnot. It's all within your control.
As like a representation of a model people might be familiar with, this would be, say, you get the tools to build your own website, but it's hosted at XYZ entity.
Yeah.
You're hosting the node, making sure the node is up and functioning, but you're providing them the tools and the keys to control that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So and whoever has keys has the keys to the coins, right? So that's the important part to delineate, is whether or not or who has that access. So that's why we're seeing a lot of collaborative custody models as well, where that key is actually broken up between these institutional entities, but no single institution entity has full access, has full custody. It's like partial custody.
And that's not happening at the state. That's happening at the node level.
Yeah.
So these
For now.
these end nodes that might be party to a contract could be multi-sig.
It could be, yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going, right? Is where every node will have some kind of collaborative custody model where it's protected by institutions. But then you to answer your earlier question, where this scales is you have these collaborative custodial, multi-sig hubs of Lightning channels that are processing all the liquidity flows within the Lightning network.
Right.
So it becomes much less risky, but you get the benefit of all the liquidity flow that's going on.
Right. Yeah, then that gives the big institutions the comfort to be able to come in and put tons and tons of money into these channels, right?
Yeah.
Because without like a qualified custodial multi-sig, they're not participating.
Right. Yeah, a lot of them use qualified custodians.
So that's are those going to be? Do you think those qualified custodians will come in and set up nodes that then financial institutions will route their funds through to participate, or do you think each institution would have be contracting their own node
That'll be up to
hiring the custodians?
Yeah, that'll be up to each institution to figure out what their best framework is or workflow. But it could work either way. That's the beauty of this, is that if you want it tightly controlled by a custodian, you can do that. Most institutions are probably going to go that route. That's why Coinbase, holds the keys to most of the ETFs, right?
Right.
Hopefully, we can create better tools that are vertically integrated enough to and seamless enough to where they don't have to go to a Coinbase. They can just do it on their own, but rely on another solution that gives all the benefits that Coinbase gives as far as security, but doesn't relinquish the actual keys to the coins, right? So you maintain control, but you get all the benefits of the secure apparatus that's built around that multi-sig. So I think that's the ideal solution. We just have to craft, applications that make that super easy, low barrier to entry, frictionless, all the usual things. Typical UI stuff.
It's a very exciting future for you, buddy.
Yeah, we are super
Don't
excited.
smile too much yet. I'm excited for you. The state chain, or where the contract lives.
Yeah.
How does that get coded? Are you building like a development kit for that, or are you guys doing that customized work for individuals, or how does that work?
Yes. Right now we have just like a template that we have coded up, and we'll be releasing those. We plan on open sourcing this apparatus too.
Okay.
We're calling it Lightning Smart Channels instead of smart contracts, but the function is ideally going to be the same kind of functionality. So yeah, with that, you should be able, it's kind of like a blank slate. You can create whatever you want to create. As we've seen in all these DeFi apps, right? You can start to either port over things from other chains, because our solution's built in Rust right now.
Okay.
So I believe Solana uses Rust as well. So although we don't have EVM compatibility or whatever that, at least not yet. If somebody wants to build that, great. But yeah, essentially it's a blank slate. So you can create any kind of arbitrary, complex financial contract that you want. So
Solana could mint a Solana token on top of a Satoshi and run it over the Lightning Network.
It's possible, yeah.
And do you see? Okay, so like for this point on, we've discussed like peer-to-peer contracts. Do you see contracts that function like a DAO living there as well, where multiple nodes can join and participate in whatever this agreement is?
Yeah, once you figure out the multi-sig on a Lightning node part, which is actually pretty hard, but there's a couple groups working on a protocol called Frost. I think Fetty's working on one, like a version of Frost. Essentially.
P.S. I think Lennart is working on one.
Oh, okay.
So I need to get you two together.
Yeah, I would love to brainstorm with him again.
Okay.
But yeah, once you figure out that piece, then you can do all these kind of complex organizational structure with some kind of hierarchical threshold for doing certain actions or whatever.
That's cool. Starting a DAO with your own financial system built in, essentially.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So when do you buy the yacht? I'm just kidding.
No yachts. only holding Bitcoin.
Good for you. Good for you. That's a smart Bitcoiner right there. That's very exciting, man. I'm really stoked for you.
Yeah, thank you. We're actually working with Blockfills.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes, John Devine's awesome.
He's awesome.
I just read his book.
Yeah, I got to get a copy. He sent me the PDF version of it.
Be careful, because then you'll know how smart he is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I gotta
just,
get
I mean,
it.
I read his book. I realized I need to read it like 5 more times just to have a basic understanding so I can even communicate with him about it.
Right.
It's intense. It's such complicated stuff that goes on in the options and derivatives world. Are you?
Yeah, well, that's
I mean, you're living in
essentially
that.
what we're getting into now.
Yeah.
So yeah, John's book is super helpful, and with that, we're actually partnering up with USF over here, University of South Florida. They have a fintech research department, and they're really excited to be digging into this particular
cool.
area of research, because this is like a new frontier.
Yeah.
Digital assets, how to price, derivatives, options, when there's no, Federal Reserve involved, right? Setting interest rates.
Right.
You have to come up with new ways of formulating how do you calculate the real interest rate for an asset like this. Yeah,
this is good timing, I think, basically with the new administration coming into office.
Oh, it's going to be so lit.
Reevaluating the digital asset landscape the way I think that they're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Could really, really light this thing on fire for you, and that's so good. I'm really happy for you because could be really good timing.
Yeah.
To have this
Excellent
kind
timing.
of base core technology emerging right at the right times. A lot of times you see people come up with great ideas, and they're way too early.
Yeah.
This is just like,
well,
I think it's right on time.
We started ideating, like I said, almost 2 years ago. We got a lot of people said, no, it's way too early for this.
It all switched overnight.
Yeah. Well, this year has been, I think, a very defining year as far as how all of this is going to transpire from here on out. The ETFs being approved late last year and obviously launching at the beginning of this year, and has outpaced everything.
Mm-hmm.
That set a precedent now that we're not going back.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to reverse.
Genie's not going back in the bottle.
Yeah, it's out. So it's only going to accelerate. And as Bitcoin has always accelerated much faster than anybody anticipated. I like you probably remember too all the projections of what the all-time highs would be in a couple of years. And we all got it wrong. Mm-hmm. We are all, discounting Bitcoin severely, and I think that's still happening right now.
Yeah, I think some of us in the industry we do that, right? Because we're constantly fighting the fight. So you can get a little pessimistic about they're never going to prove that, they're never going to prove this, because you're constantly trying to push the boundary and being told no. So it is easy to discount, but I cannot deny, this is the first time in a long time I felt like, whoa, some major floodgates opened here. And I'm so hopeful for what we're going to see in 2025 that I'm trying to just keep my enthusiasm at bay. Yeah. Because it's overwhelming.
It's almost too good to be true.
Right. And whenever I felt that way in Bitcoin, I've been punished severely. I just try and stay humble. Just keep stacking sats and shut your mouth.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't be upset. We're not at 100K yet.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's actually a good thing. Yeah. Once we go past that, 200K is right around the corner.
I know. That's what people don't realize. They think as the numbers go up, unless you've had a number of cycles in the bag, when you hit 100, you don't, we know 200 is right around the corner.
Yeah.
For other people, they think that's it's over.
Right.
It's we're just starting to accelerate.
Yeah. It's like a new frontier, man.
Mm-hmm. Very
exciting
cool,
times.
Man.
It's a good time to be a Bitcoiner right now.
It's a good time to get started too.
Always.
Right. I mean, like I said, I had a couple of people reach out to me that excuse me, they know I've been in Bitcoin and always talk about it, right? You can't
Yeah.
hang around me for more than 30 seconds without knowing I'm into Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And, but you know, they were kind of like, oh yeah, that's interesting, whatever. And we go about our, whatever we're doing. And, yeah, but then you get a couple calls like, hey, you know, we're kind of interested. Like, can we like have a coffee and talk about this and see, like, can you explain this to me a little bit more? And, so that's happening earlier in this cycle. It's happening. It started happening right crossing the all-time high.
Yeah.
Whereas in past cycles, it wouldn't happen until we were near the peak.
Yeah.
So I think definitely with like it being such a political issue this year, getting close to 100,000, I think that's just like a pretty indistinguishable mental mark of like, wow, like that's like who would ever thought, right?
Yeah.
And
It seems ridiculous. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it is. I mean, I was in wealth management for 25 years, and a lot of those people now are calling me and saying like, this is like a mainstream thing now. This is like, how do I get like? And now I'm getting the questions of like, how much should I put in my portfolio? Not like what is it and what it, like they're past that. It's just how much do I need to get? It's like
that's the
well,
right.
that's that's interesting.
Question.
Yeah, it's totally a game changer. So where are people able to find out more information about this? Are they able to test it with you, get involved yet, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're targeting institutions primarily, right? But yeah, if anybody's interested, reach out to me, Gabe at blockspaces.com. You can visit our website. We have a little bit of more information on the product offering we're talking about right now there, but we'll be doing a full court press launch in Q1. And
targets are going to, I mean, primary first targets are kind of like miners, exchanges, Bitcoin businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. Prime brokers, market makers.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, you think this gets down to the average pleb?
Yeah, I think so.
Through like just financial infrastructure, essentially.
Right. Yeah. Some of the folks we're talking to that have applications that want to offer Bitcoin native products can embed our solution into their application. So from a end user perspective.
We have some interesting stuff being developed on the real estate front that we need to talk about.
Okay.
Because you should not be selling your Bitcoin to buy real estate.
No, you shouldn't.
But you should be rewarding yourself with a nice piece of real estate for your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And your family. This could be a great tool for people to put Bitcoin in a contract, get a loan, essentially a term mortgage to buy that property.
Yeah.
But we need pools of capital. We need pools of capital to come on the Lightning Network.
Yeah. And that's where the collateral comes in. People don't understand collateral underlines all the major financial institution and how they transact with each other. So that's where all the liquidity is being held. And then there's derivatives on top of that, of course. But it starts with that underlying collateral. Like, what is it and who has it? And that's where a lot of the problems also come because when you rely on a centralized clearing party and then you have a financial collapse, everybody's trying to scramble like, okay, who actually owns the underlying asset because it's been rehypothecated several times for other contracts.
It's true, yeah.
So
this can't be done.
This can't happen with our solution.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's obvious now, and that's highly secure compared to
exactly.
The
so we
system
actually
that
think
we're on right
there
now.
would be a premium on our kinds of Bitcoin underwritten contracts versus traditional fiat underwritten contracts because you're not taking any additional risks.
In the derivatives forest fire that I see coming in the next
this is going to be vital.
2 to 5 years,
you'll
be the only green shoot standing because everybody else will get torched.
Yeah, everybody's going to run to Bitcoin in mass, but still will need to operate, right? So how do you do that? Well, you need something to operate in that fashion where Bitcoin is the underwriting.
Oh, dude, this is this is classic Bitcoin game theory.
Yeah.
You're building the new system, and as the old system dies, people are going to be scrambling to get on this platform.
Yeah.
This is great.
Hit me up.
This is so cool. This is so cool. Wow, Gabe.
We're trying to shake some things up.
Far more than I thought, man. Very impressive. Very
Thank
impressive.
You. Well, I've been in this space for a while, and this has been my sole focus: is how can Bitcoin penetrate things? Of course, we initially thought it was payments through merchants. Mm-hmm. We had the Bitcoin Bowl here in 2014 in St. Pete. I was a part of that. We onboarded a ton of merchants. It was 2014. Hardly anybody had Bitcoin, so that didn't really go anywhere. So I just kept
iterating,
trying to find where is all the money actually, being, held, and where's all the liquidity go? And it turns out this is where. It's
cool. Well, yeah, I think it's a very important product. So anything we can do to help spread the word, and we're going to do that with this podcast. But
yeah, I appreciate it.
Always hit
thanks
me
for
up,
having
man.
me on. We live so close.
Yes, yeah. Thanks for driving down.
Should come visit you more often.
Tell Rosa congratulations on formally locking you down,
yes.
Even though I know she's had you locked down for many years. And you're a lucky guy.
I am.
You guys have an awesome family.
Yes, we do.
A little bit of that story, and it's very heartfelt, and it's a wonderful story. So
yeah. Thank you.
I'm stoked for you guys.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share before we wrap it up? Anything we didn't cover that?
You asked me how I get people started.
Yeah. Sure.
I usually point people to the book I co-authored with.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's talk
Jimmy
about
Song
that. Yeah.
and Robert Breedlove and several others, called "Thank God for Bitcoin."
Yeah, I have a copy.
Thank you. It turns out it's done way better than we ever thought. We don't really do a good job promoting it, but it's a nice primer to understand the reason why Bitcoin matters, not necessarily like a how-to or any of the technical stuff behind Bitcoin or how it works. It's more of answering the question, like, why would I start with Bitcoin? Like, why should I pay attention to Bitcoin at all? Why is this a thing that I should, learn about in the first place? So we've got tremendous feedback around the world. We've gotten many requests now to get it translated in other languages and stuff, all naturally or organic. Again, we don't do a very good job promoting, but it's been a really just neat thing to see that people are understanding the reasons as to why, which is really important.
I'm glad you brought that up because I'd forgot about that, and it's always fascinated me the connection different spiritual beliefs make to the value of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's Christianity, I know there's a big Muslim Bitcoin movement. Mm-hmm. So maybe just from your own spiritual background, what are the things that really connect for you with Bitcoin?
Yeah. That was the the big premise of the book, right? Is from a Judeo-Christian perspective, like, why does this matter? Mm-hmm. And it was important for us to answer that question because you get a lot of pushback from these faith circles that they think everything's the mark of the beast, essentially.
Well said.
And of course, Bitcoin being like this global monetary asset, you can draw that conclusion. So we decided to basically write a book to shut down that argument, and really talk about the reasons why Bitcoin, like I said earlier, is the best kind of money that mankind has ever had. Previous, obviously, gold was, and that's because gold has the physical attributes that are needed. But now we live in an increasingly digital world. How does that translate to a digital world? Well, gold doesn't, because it's physical, right? So you need a digital gold And that's what Bitcoin is. So, and just making that case from, like I said, a biblical Judeo-Christian perspective, just because the co-authors, we all got together actually during COVID. We were doing like a book club, essentially, or Bible study / book club. And whenever we got done with the books that we were reading through, which were essentially gold bug books, right? Why you should own gold. And of course, Bitcoiners, we agree with all of the premises there, but the solution to go back to a gold standard is just not tenable, right? We've crossed the Rubicon a long time ago as far as that goes. And of course, since that system was undermined by the current system, we know that doesn't work, right? So we need a new solution anyway, and that's what Bitcoin provides. Is that it is the answer to the problem of how do we get sound money to underline all of our transactions instead of relying on central banks and fiat currencies like we have today, which will fail. They all fail. It's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time.
So if you want to protect your wealth against that theft, right? And this is what the Bible talks about sound weights and measures, that you need a unit of account that is reliable, right? That you can rely on. That's you're not being cheated. It can't be diluted, right? As gold was. So yeah, or fiat is now, right? Just by printing way more. So these are all the reasons why, from even a biblical perspective,
right,
that you should be able to see Bitcoin from that perspective and understand that it is worth something. It is valuable to humanity, and yeah, we think.
Yeah, I mean, I've always believed one of the greatest things about Bitcoin is that regardless of how you come to it, whether from whatever religion you come from, whatever culture, race, belief system you might hold, unless you're a lizard, you can see the value in a truth protocol, a protocol that cannot be defrauded.
Yeah.
That I can't fool you by sending you a false Bitcoin, right? The network is so robust at producing truth and equality in the system, equal access, that there's no way for me to manipulate other people in the network. And that in fact, once you truly understand it, you realize that the only way to extract value from the network is to embrace everything it provides, participate in it as fairly and equally, and by the rules.
Yeah. You have to add value.
You have to add value. And just by choosing to say, I'm going to go along with the rules, you start to receive a tremendous amount of value. I don't know of any other financial system that operates that way.
Yeah.
All the other financial systems I've been involved with, it's how do I manipulate the system? How do I figure out how to write a more sophisticated contract to fool this guy?
Right.
How do I put things in my contract that they don't understand that allow me to do X, Y, and Z down the road? Or even if you're close to the money printer, how do I just increase the units so I get wealthy and everybody else gets poor? Right,
yeah.
The simplest game in the system. Bitcoin breaks all that.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like it doesn't matter what faith you come from. You cannot look at that without realizing that that's pro-humanity.
Yeah.
Which is what all religions hopefully were set up to do, to be pro-humanity.
Yeah.
And so it should fit right in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a very powerful message. I think a lot of people eventually end up there. Maybe we all come for we're going to get rich.
Yeah.
And then we realize it's adding way more value than just monetary value. It's just this protocol that's guiding humanity with the right incentives.
Yeah.
Right?
That's super important, because you start assessing what you value and how you value it on a totally different scale, right? Right now you weigh it in dollars, but when you're on a Bitcoin standard, which is also recommendation. We recommend read the Bitcoin Standard. That kind of just realigns all of your incentives to add value in places where you know you can, and you can add the most value. And then also, how do you retain your value, your worth as an individual for your own talents? And maybe that also inspires you to, step it up, right?
Yeah.
Increase your talents, increase your own value to others as well. So yeah, I think it's totally
And that value,
thing.
because I don't come to Bitcoin with any sort of technical expertise, right? For that value for me was like, just how can I be more humble about what I'm doing in my real life so that I have more money for sats?
Totally, yeah.
Right. So it can be just a simple tweak in your understanding of what truly provides value for you and your family and your community. It doesn't have to be you going out and becoming a great coder.
Yeah. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, the world takes all kinds to revolve, right? So no matter
there's
what
Bitcoin art, there's Bitcoin music, there's
100%, yeah.
Guys that talk to mics.
Yeah, a lot of those.
A lot of those. I took the low-hanging fruit.
But as long as you're adding value, right? That benefits people. That creates that circular kind of, beneficial. I give, you give, and then it's a positive feedback loop.
Yeah. I mean, building in contracts that can't be broken, that are peer-to-peer, that are based on this settlement of the most honest money the world's ever seen, that is a Christian value. That's a Muslim value. That's a Judean value, right? It's like, it's all there. So to me, I see it really benefiting humanity. And I think guys like you writing those kind of books, and Saifedean, I know, is written, been a part of written a book about how the Muslim faith should interact or be supportive of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I could be completely screwing that up, but I think he had something to do with that. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. And then, obviously Robert's involved in a lot of the philosophy.
Yeah.
Monica Bravo coming in and talking about how astrology and numerology and philosophy fit into Bitcoin. I think the moral of the story is truth impacts everything.
Yeah.
And this protocol of truth is going to influence everything.
Yeah. And that's why it's heavily underpriced around. How do you price that? How do you price truth?
It's right. It can't be valued. It's priceless.
It's priceless.
Bitcoin is priceless.
There you go. We solved it.
Gabe, I loved talking with you, man. I'm going to give you the last word. Anything you want to tell the audience? Have people come by, find you on the social networks?
Yeah, I'm mostly on X as Gabe B for Bitcoin Higgins. Yeah, you can find me pontificating on Bitcoin, politics, religion, all the friendly topics around a Thanksgiving dinner table.
There you go.
But no, just happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. You guys like and subscribe so we get more great guests like Gabe, and let's get him back. We're going to get you back and find out where this thing all goes in the next 6 months. I'm excited to find out.
Be glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe.
Thanks, man.